A couple of weeks ago, I found myself immersed in a burst of inspiration. A spontaneous idea struck me like a lightning bolt. I decided it would be a wonderful surprise for my beloved wife to enjoy a night out on the town. Just the two of us, free from the delightful chaos of our children. My mind raced as I envisioned the perfect evening where we could rekindle the romance that often gets overshadowed by our daily responsibilities. To make this delightful plan a reality, I needed some help. Thankfully, my parents lived about an hour and a half away, and they were more than happy to take care of our kids for the weekend. I arranged everything with them, and soon enough, the stage was set for a memorable evening. Usually, when I take the kids to their grandparents, I tend to linger until later in the evening, enjoying the familiar warmth of my childhood home. We often reminisce and share stories over dinner, but this time, I had a different agenda. The clock struck 8:45 p.m. when I set out, a sense of anticipation bubbling within me. My plan was to drop the kids off, say my goodbyes, and rush home to surprise my wife. I had even secured a reservation at a fantastic restaurant, known for its delectable cuisine and cozy ambience. I could already picture the flickering candlelight illuminating our faces as we connected over a glass of fine wine. Before dinner, I hoped to hit a couple of lively spots for drinks, allowing us to unwind and relive the excitement of our early days together. I returned home just before 12:45 a.m., my heart racing with anticipation. As I turned onto my street, however, a truck unfamiliar to me caught my eye, parked right in front of my house. A wave of confusion washed over me, but I reasoned it must belong to someone visiting a neighbor. It wasn't unusual for strangers to leave their vehicles in front of our home. My mind quickly refocused on my plan. Instead of driving directly into the driveway and potentially revealing my presence, I opted to park a few houses down and sneak into our home through a side entrance, just to preserve the surprise. I tiptoed through the basement door, moving with the utmost caution. The house was steeped in the comforting scent of familiar aromas, but my excitement was tinged with nerves. As soon as I crossed the threshold, however, I froze. A series of soft sounds floated down from the floor above. Initially, I dismissed them. Perhaps my wife was unwinding in her own way, enjoying a moment of solitude. I contemplated heading back to my car and entering through the garage to keep my arrival subtle. But just then, the unmistakable sound of a man's voice drifted through the air, sending a chill racing down my spine. In an instant, my stomach dropped, and my heart began to pound ferociously against my ribcage. My emotions swirled like a storm inside me. Confusion, anger, heartbreak, all wrestling for dominance. I couldn't quite process what was happening, but one thing was clear. I needed to understand what was going on in my home. Against every instinct urging me to flee, I steeled myself and began to ascend the staircase. I moved gingerly, straining to keep my footsteps silent as I climbed, each step feeling like an eternity. The air grew thicker with tension as I neared the source of the disturbing sounds. My mind raced with all the possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Yet an overwhelming sense of curiosity compelled me forward. As I reached the top of the stairs, I paused, listening intently. The muffled conversations and sounds reverberated through the walls, striking me with a cold reality. I wasn't prepared for what I might find, yet the need to know was driving me onward. The hall stretched before me like a daunting labyrinth. Would I be met with a sight that shattered my trust and ripped through the fabric of my world? In that moment, I felt as though I was caught between two worlds. One where my life was blissfully typical, and the other, lurking behind that closed door, portrayed a nightmare I could hardly fathom. With bated breath and trembling hands, I glanced toward the door leading to the living room, my heart racing in rhythm with my footsteps. Every second stretched into eternity as emotions swirled within me, and a wave of uncertainty crashed against my resolve. What truth awaited me on the other side? Would I be able to process it if I found what I feared? The anticipation mounted, and I was left wondering how exactly it would all unfold. In the quiet stillness of the house, the rest of the world seemed to fade away, consumed by the singular focus of that moment. Each heartbeat echoing in my ears as I prepared to confront what lay ahead, whatever it might be. The door stood ajar, creaking softly as it swayed slightly with the gentle breeze. The kitchen was deserted, almost eerily quiet, but it was easy to deduce from the muffled sounds originating from the living room that there was activity taking place. As I strained to listen, a wave of dread washed over me. I knew that peering into the living room would reveal something I didn't want to see, something that would shatter my heart into 1,000 pieces. In a moment of desperation, I reached for my phone and opened the camera application, my hands trembling slightly. I gingerly positioned my device around the corner of the wall, just enough to get a glimpse without exposing myself. Oh, how difficult it is to relive this moment through words. What I saw was my wife, laughing and engaged with a man whose face was entirely unfamiliar to me. I won't elaborate on the specifics of their actions. Those details are too painful to recount, but I'm sure you can imagine the betrayal playing out before my eyes. With every second that ticked by, I felt like I was suffocating in the weight of my own emotions. The recording began without me fully realizing what I was doing. I just knew I needed evidence, a way to confront the reality I never wanted to face. There I stood, rooted in the kitchen, staring at my phone screen while my heart raced furiously in my chest. A part of me wanted to scream, to rush in and confront them, yet I felt paralyzed, as if an invisible force held me in place. Minutes stretched endlessly, each second unfurling like an agonizing scroll, as I continued to witness this scene unfold. My wife, radiant and alive in a way that I hadn't seen her in ages, suddenly sprang off the couch. She made a coy remark about heading to the bedroom, and the two of them ascended the stairs, laughter echoing in their wake. I distinctly remember her saying something about having plenty of time, a comment that pierced through my thoughts like a dagger. Once they were out of sight, a sense of urgency propelled me into the living room. My heart raced as I scanned the space, my gaze locking onto a pair of pants that were unmistakably not mine. As my fingers fumbled through the fabric, I discovered a wallet nestled inside. I hesitated for a fleeting moment, my moral compass battling with the need to find answers. But curiosity prevailed. I pulled out the wallet, opened it, and began snapping pictures of the driver's license inside. A man's name stared back at me, a name that meant nothing until that moment, but was about to unravel an entire thread of my life. I now knew where he lived, who he was, and how my wife connected with someone completely foreign to me. The sheer absurdity of it all filled me with a whirlwind of confusion. After gathering all the information I could, I slipped out of the house with the same stealth I had entered. Each step felt heavy, almost like wading through molasses. The drive back to my car was mechanical, as if I were on autopilot, my thoughts spiraling out of control. I slid into the driver's seat and buried my head in my hands. The tears flowed easily now, each one a testament to the pain of betrayal, the loneliness of heartbreak. I felt utterly weak, like a man who had lost not only his partner but also the belief in love itself. Sitting there, I wrestled with a torrent of emotions. Rage, sadness, and overwhelming confusion flooded over me in waves. How could she do this? How could she throw away everything we had built together? Questions buzzed in my mind like angry bees, stinging with reminders of moments we shared, of promises made. Everything seemed like a cruel joke. As the sun started to dip below the horizon, casting shadows over the empty parking lot, I realized it was time to make a choice. I could confront her immediately and demand answers, or I could take a step back, gather my thoughts, and plan my next move. Perhaps I needed to think twice before diving into the chaos that awaited me at home. In that moment, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about seeking answers. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my sense of self. I couldn't allow the actions of another to define who I was or what I was worth. With a deep breath, I wiped the tears from my face, straightened my back, and prepared to face whatever lay ahead. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I wasn't done fighting yet. I found myself sitting in my car, staring at the screen as I decided to watch the recording. I needed to confirm that it had captured everything I anticipated. What I witnessed in that video was a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion. I won't delve into the specifics, but I remained parked in my vehicle for a good 30 minutes, paralyzed by my thoughts. I couldn't bear the idea of driving over to my parents' place to pick up the kids. How could I possibly explain the havoc that had just been unleashed on my life? Instead, a different plan began to form in my mind. Taking a deep breath, I pulled into the driveway of my home and opened the garage door, resolved to put on a facade. I would pretend that I was merely back early to surprise her, making believability my ally. I entered the house with exaggerated sounds. The creaking of the door, the shuffle of my feet across the floor. It was all part of my act. When I finally came face to face with her, she appeared flustered, her eyes wide with surprise. "What are you doing home?" she questioned, still wearing her cozy robe, her hair slightly damp as if she had been preparing for a soothing bath. I concocted a light-hearted story about unexpected plans. Perhaps it was the wine I had glimpsed tucked away in the cabinet that prompted her next move. With a bright smile, she poured us 2 generous glasses and suggested we indulge in a little pregame before dressing up for the evening. I couldn't help but wonder if she sensed the growing tension within me. Despite my turmoil, I found myself at a loss for words, letting her steer the conversation. As she led me into the living room, my heart sank further. It was a place that once felt warm and inviting, filled with laughter and love. Now, an unsettling tension hung in the air. I knew I should have put a stop to it, should have interrupted and confronted the reality that awaited me. But instead, I felt like a mere spectator in my own life, allowing the moment to unfold. I could barely make out the figure of a man stealthily descending the stairs as I sat there, numb. The pang of betrayal twisted my guts, yet I remained silent, unwilling to disrupt what was happening. I watched her, my wife, engrossed in her actions, continuing without a hint of awareness of my inner turmoil. Days turned into a blur after that fateful encounter. I found myself revisiting the video time and time again, the scenes playing out like a haunting loop in my mind. Each replay shoved me deeper into a spiral of despair. I was utterly paralyzed, grappling with decisions that felt impossible to make. Could I confront her? Should I expose the truth? Those thoughts tangled endlessly in my head as I tried to navigate this newfound reality. My gut told me that she was aware of my struggle. On more than one occasion, she had asked, "Are you okay?" Her voice, laced with a hint of concern, only deepened my sense of worthlessness. Every time I hit a low, the video became my scapegoat, a dark comfort I couldn't resist. It became my anchor, a reminder of the day my world shattered. I catch myself watching it, not just once or twice, but often 10 times a day. The images burned into my memory, making it impossible to escape the agony of what I had witnessed. I felt trapped in a labyrinth of my own making, haunted by the choices I had failed to act upon. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of wrestling with my thoughts, I sat alone in the dim light of the living room, the weight of my heart pressing down hard. The shadows seemed to dance against the walls, a cruel reminder of the emptiness surrounding me. I reflected on the relationship I thought we had, what was left of it. A whirlwind of anger surged within me, battling against the love I had felt for her. It was suffocating. Each breath I took weighed down by resentment and betrayal. Suddenly, the door creaked open and she walked in, her eyes bright but slightly cautious. "Hey, honey, you okay?" she asked, her voice soft yet probing. I looked into her eyes, searching for an answer, wondering if I could just gather the courage to confront her. But the words failed to escape my lips as I witnessed her vulnerability. "Yeah, just a long day," I replied with a forced smile, feeling a pit in my stomach grow deeper. As the moments passed in that silence, I understood that we were standing at a crossroads, a place where the past met the uncertain future. Would I choose to confront the truth, to voice the depths of my hurt, or was I bound to remain ensnared in this murky water, warmed by the memories yet stung by their poison? Potential futures flashed before me. A confrontation, a healing, or perhaps a devastating separation. Each thought collided in a cacophony of fear and hope, leaving me disoriented. And so, the days continued to crawl by. The video remained my constant companion, a grim reminder of a fractured trust. I knew I had to make a decision to break free from this cycle of torment. With each watch, I felt the resolve begin to bubble within me, a whisper urging me to seek the truth hidden beneath the surface. One day, I promised myself, one day I would find the strength to break free from the chains of silence. Every ounce of my being craved clarity, and as I replayed the footage, I sensed the moment approaching. A day when I could finally confront not just her, but also my own turbulent emotions. If my story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more. I'd love to hear your advice on the steps I should take. Keep in touch for future stories.